Hello Reapers, my name is Seth and we are back again with some more Trove. Today we're going to be talking about the dev highlights. So this is going to end up being from the latest dev live stream. You know, this is a couple days late, I know, but most of all that's because the new class that they ended up showing was also part of the dev highlights, and most of all, I mean, obviously we had to show that off. Now, incidentally, there was actually a little bit more footage to the class that I didn't even know about was actually on the dev live stream. So we'll get to look at that later in the video, where we do actually get to see a couple of the abilities of the fist fighting mode of the Vanguardian, rather than all of the ranged abilities that we ended up seeing in the video, right? So anyways, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Shirokiri, because this person is an absolute baller. He just keeps taking all of the notes from the dev streams and puts it all into a nice compact Q&A form thing, and it's great, so I don't have to siphon through like hours of footage. Seriously, it's absolutely awesome. I'll put a link in the description to the forum post so that you can end up reading through it all yourselves. But without further ado, I would appreciate if you would like the video, makes it show up in searches and stuff like that, so we can talk about all this stuff. So we've got the new Valentine's event coming out for February 13th, hashtag confirmed. We do actually have some patch notes as well talking about February 13th, how they're going to end up introducing daily login rewards for patron users. And lots of people keep asking, is this only going to affect new players? No, it's going to affect everybody, okay? So on February 13th, there's going to be a little bit of a patch alongside the new event that's going to show up. Of course, you can expect me to have tutorials on all of it, but I don't really feel like talking about the patch like in a separate video. Most of all, we're going to talk about like during that day or during the event day or something like that. But in either case, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have 7 days where you can log in for 7 days in a row as a patron user, and you're going to get flux, you're going to get all sorts of other items and a gold chaos chest at the end, and it is not going to end up being repeatable. So it's just a one-time thing to make players have a little bit more incentive to get patrons. So I will have a video talking about that more specifically, but only once it's actually into the game rather than in today's video, right? So the event itself is going to end up having a handful of things. The event is going to have romancing pinatas, which there's going to end up being love wings, which we ended up showing off last week. Those are going to end up actually coming out exclusively from those pinatas, so it remains to be seen whether or not these pinatas are going to be an event item that's dropped by love bug invaders, or whether it's an item you specifically have to buy out of the store, which would be a pretty big stretch for the devs, so I don't really think that that's going to end up happening. And then Shirokiri also speculates that there might be an ally coming out of the box as well. We do know that there is a couple other things coming out with the event. You know, there's going to be a new carpet mount and stuff like that, but we'll talk about all of that as the event ends up coming sometime, on Tuesday, right? So anyways, there's also going to end up being, they showed in the dev stream, where if we can opt into emails in the top right, it was going to end up actually giving us a free legendary dragon. So I'll of course talk about that more specifically when it gets into the game. As of right now though, just to say, because lots of people keep asking, how do I actually opt in? I want a free dragon. You can't do it right now. It's not in the game yet. It's just coming into the game soon. So anyways, we ended up seeing the new class itself, as well as a couple of the other abilities and stuff. And I'll show footage of that accordingly a little bit later, because otherwise let's just get to the questions and answers. So, question. Now that you have nerfed pirate farms, will you consider reducing the cost for things from the merchant? So interestingly enough, I think that pirate farms and adventurine farming and stuff like that has actually been fixed, despite the fact that we didn't see a download for a hot fix. I think they just ended up fixing it server side, but honestly speaking, I don't exactly know, because what can I say? I'm not gonna lie, I don't really grind adventurine, and them changing the way that you grind it is not really going to give me that much incentive to actually doing it, because it's overall still just quite boring. However, that said, I have heard reports of people on Xbox. Captain Red ended up reporting to me that there was actually a quest where you had to kill like 20 normal enemies from the Forbidden Spires biome, and it gave you like 74 adventurine if you had patron or something, and that for only 20 enemies. Like, that's a little bit more what I'm talking about, devs. That's much better balancing, but then of course you have to actually have the quest show up in the first place, right? So either way, it might be profitable to get yourself a repose of heroes in your club now, just because the better NPCs are going to end up giving better adventurine. So anyways, what the devs ended up responding to the question about reducing the cost of things from the merchant for adventurine, they said, we plan to watch progress now that the change has gone live and adjust accordingly. We are also considering the amount of XP needed for smaller clubs to level up. Yeah, so the XP is just, it's way too high. Honestly, it takes way too long to level up your clubs, and most clubs just end up losing incentive before you end up being able to max out anyways. Like, we probably would have maxed out if people even felt the need to end up grinding Adventurine in the first place, but honestly speaking, you just are so dead from grinding Adventurine by the time you end up getting your Blocktron fragments and that dragon, that you just quit. Like, you just don't want to do it anymore because it's just so, like, clunky a system, you know? Like, one of the big things that I think the devs really should consider working on is the Adventures tab right here. You should be able to accept quests from these guys from this tab, because I think that the biggest reason why so many people don't even bother with the farming is that you gotta go into a world, and then specifically you gotta come back out of the world, go through a loading screen, get to your club, lose your placement in that world, unless you end up getting the world ID, just to get the quest, and then end up going through another loading screen. And that becomes very, very tiresome after a while. But anyways, that's just me. So the next question is, can we expect changes or improvements to the current time-gated progression in the way of Shaper Stars and Empowered Gem Boxes with the new equipment, a rarity on the horizon? So the developers say in the next update, we will be updating a way to increase the amount of souls per week. That scares me, man, because that's still time-gated, but maybe we're going to see a pay-to-win method where you can actually buy something to increase your souls? Or is it going to be something where the more you end up grinding Shadow Towers or something, you're going to end up getting more? I don't know, like, that's cool. I like that. Most of all, I just want my Divinity Dragon, because especially when the Vanguardian comes into the game, he's going to have a Divinity costume as well, so we're going to need even more Divinity souls. But for the most part, honestly speaking, souls aren't really a problem for me. Now, I know that I'm like a very, very small minority of endgame player here, but it's like, my point being that it's like, how's that really going to affect the game? I would personally like it if we could just grind the souls outright. Make it so that completing Daughter of the Moon just gives you less lunar souls at the change that you can just grind it over and over again. I think that would be a good thing, but hey, that's just me. Of course, you know, they like their time-gated content, or honestly, let's just rip off the Band-Aid here and just say that all time-gated content in free-to-play games should always have a pay-to-win method. I'm not saying I necessarily condone that or that it's a good idea. I just think that there should always be some type of, like, that's kind of what time-gated content usually is, right? So that's where I'm a little bit wary about this, whether or not we're going to pay to end up having more total souls. That said, the devs have talked about, hinted and talked a little bit about the next update and how they plan to have a lot more items and stuff that's being added to the game that's going to be tradable, as well as just being influenced by the community and stuff like that. So maybe we'll end up seeing it be the resource that replaces Chaos Factor, because Chaos Coins used to be a rare resource you could get out of Chaos Chests that would increase your daily Chaos Factor, which would end up giving you more Chaos Chests every time you log in. But anyways, I don't mean to go on a rant about that. I just think that it's interesting that they actually confirmed that. Next question, why is the max club level 11 and not 10? The developers pretty much say that that's pretty much the only way that they could round it out. There's not really any reason for the club to end up going to 11. It just kind of does that because what they actually wanted to do was they wanted to have it so that any level after 10 was going to kind of operate similar to how Prestige does, Prestige leveling or Paragon leveling does in Diablo 3, where every level after 10 you would end up just getting a whole bunch of clue bits. And that was it. You weren't going to end up increasing for any other method other than just getting some clue bits, but they said that they couldn't really end up putting that into the game. Acid fishing is asked again. Somebody just wondering whether it's going to end up being a thing. Thankfully, the devs just say a flat out no, that's not going to end up happening. So thankfully, I think we can safely say that we are absolutely done with fishing. Now that we got plasma fishing out of the way, that's it. There's no other reason to fish anymore. Like, seriously, I don't want it in the game. So anyways, Dracolite, what are the plans? Full DPS, tank, or a hybrid? So this is interesting. The developers actually respond to say that they're keeping it as a hybrid, even though it's not really a hybrid right now. Technically speaking, the Draco is a tank more than DPS, but even then, there's other characters that just do the job better. Like, Draco overall sucks right now. Like, it's not a playable character. I'm sorry to say, guys, it really isn't. After this buff and increase and rework to the character, though, really, really looking forward to seeing what they do. So they say they're going to keep it a hybrid, but its sustained damage per second is going to end up being increased to more top-tier DPS characters as well. So Possibly we could actually see Draco making a comeback, which I would really like. I think that's really cool because Draco used to be my all-time favorite character. One thing that I would love to see changed though is we gotta see the class see like new fire video effects. They gotta do that, man, because the fire video effects are way too old considering how polished everything else about the game is getting now, you know? But that's just my 2 cents again. So next question, any plans to limit the number of multiple classes in Shadow Towers? No plans at all. Will we ever be able to craft or ideally mine different sized blocks for building? I mean, I don't really understand that one because you can already kind of just throw bombs down to destroy different blocks. But I guess they mean just more specifically like using a selector tool or your mouse scroll to select like bigger block placement. Like, oh, I want to just put down just a nice big fat thing, which I mean, would be ideal. The building definitely needs a lot of work in this game, but honestly speaking, I think that's where they should actually go in the direction of frameworks. There should actually be a framework for every different color block that would just end up taking a bigger space, don't you think? Or maybe just a wall, you know, like a 3x3, 5x5. There should just be different frameworks like that rather than being pre-built structures. It should be actual like builds, you know, like building blocks, so that you can end up customizing and making custom builds and stuff like that. I think that could end up being something that would be really, really good to the game. But anyways, they say probably not, although we will continue to scale blocks through the core and things like fixtures. So I don't think they completely understood the question. Next question. Super style stashes are abundant. Some of us have hundreds. Can this be looked at? The developers say, we have some new styles on the way with the next update. Now, maybe I'm reading too deep into this here, Reapers, but that right there tells me the new class is coming out in the March update. Because there's a lot of hints that they've been giving out about how they say that the new class is going to be coming out on the test server sooner than we think. And we were saying that the class would come out in March on the test server, meaning that the class is going to end up coming out on the test server before the March update, most likely so that we can test it out for the March update. And also the fact that super style stashes, what else would be added to the game that is going to end up taking that much more styles outside of the new fist weapon that the Vanguardian is going to end up using? So I'm really, really hyped about that. You know, this of course is just speculation. Maybe the March update comes around and the class isn't coming out at all, but I'm pretty sure and leaning towards it, because I think also the developers wouldn't be able to get away with, nor would they want to, show the new class off and then it's like, oh yeah, this class is only coming out in May or April. You know, it's just not gonna happen, right? It's just like they showed it off, it's gonna happen. So I'm pretty confident that it's coming out in March based on that answer right there. So anyways, next question. Some veteran Trove players are sitting on a lot of starter class coins, yet not possible to loot collect it. Perhaps we should be able to loot collect it for double XP potions. The developers say, we will check that out. Think about it. What? It's like really, really messed up here. Oh, they just say they're gonna think about it, and then the next question just isn't spaced correctly. But it says, will Shadow Tower arenas and dungeons ever have other last bosses like the Dreamy Monster? So, you know, when the big Donkey Kong or Danky Kank shows up, they're asking if there's going to end up being a different enemy instead of that idiot, because he's pretty much from the alpha or beta or something. But they say they don't think so. We could look into some feedback. I think they should, you know, well, actually, no, I don't think that they should, because honestly speaking, Shadow Towers shouldn't be any more fleshed out than they already are. Like, Shadow Towers already have gotten so much work, and they're still really boring. You know, like, what can I say? Are we ever going to have more empowered gems with new abilities? We can't answer that. Probably, maybe. Now, here's the thing, folks. That question right there, before you get too excited and think that we're going to get secondary class gem abilities or something like that, because the developers did say they were going to do that way, way, way in the past. I'm pretty confident where they say we can't answer that, probably, maybe. The new class ability is obviously going to be for the Vanguardian, so I'm pretty confident that's what they're hinting at, is just the new class gem ability for the new character, not saying that we're going to have a whole breadth of new class abilities, which could potentially end up happening in the future, but I don't see it happening in 2018 just because I don't think it's a priority for them. Maybe it is, but honestly, that would be a little bit too much gem updates that are coming way too frequently, and I think that it would end up hurting the game rather than helping it. So can we expect, or when can we expect tradable loot to return to the Chaos Chest? I don't know why so many people keep thinking that it's coming back to the Chaos Chest. It's not. When will the loot rotation of the Chaos Chest tradable be curated in a way that allows every item to have a healthy economic investment period? Oh my gosh, this question is like so like overly thought out, like seriously. So what they're trying to ask in English is if there's tradable items going to be added back to the Chaos Chest, just because of the fact that it would mean that the in-game economy could end up benefiting from this. And the developers have a pretty decent answer where they say one of the factors that limits how tradable items can be used in the Chaos Chest are that they drop from the world. We've seen changes, we've seen these We've seen challenges with botting in this regard, and that's one of the main reasons they are not tradable now. We will introduce more tradability through earned and purchased items in the next update, but not through Chaos Chests. So again, unfortunately, this is something that kind of keeps happening with Trove, is that there's a handful of people botting and everybody has to pay for it. That's not really my best solution. You know, I think that there could be a different workaround towards that. Honestly speaking, I think that they could just get away with making Chaos just be an item that would exclusively be in the cash shop, or just add a certain box to the cash shop that operates very similarly to the Chaos Chest, you know? Or just make it so that any item you buy out of the cash shop should just be tradable again. And they do say that purchased items in the next update will potentially end up being tradable. So hopefully it means that we should see all of these items be tradable. Because I think, you know, that's the whole thing, is that I think that it's really, really weird that the developers don't seem to realize that if all of these items were tradable, it would actually help the game to make more money because of the fact that all of these would end up costing credits, right? And a free-to-play player, yes, they can technically end up grinding credits, credit pouches, or grinding up their flux to get a credit pouch in order to end up buying these items. But they're still buying the credit pouches from somebody who spent real money. And that's kind of the whole point. You know, that's the whole joke of it all, is it's like, it's not technically gotten for free because somebody had to spend money. And personally, I feel that that's the direction that they should move in, because then free-to-play players would benefit from being able to actually get all these things for free, while pay-to-win players and the game itself would end up benefiting from the ability of being able to actually buy all of these items and sell them and just end up getting an in-game profit, right? So, will you add potatoes to the game is the next question. They say there's an ally coming. There's also a few styles already. And then last question here, after completing a collection/racing challenge, a message says the world will close in less than 2 hours. Why? The devs pretty much just say, why not? Because why would you want to hang out in the world for more than 2 hours? Like, there's just no real reason to. So that's pretty much their short answer to it. So let's actually go to the developer live stream here. Let me see if I can find this, and we can end up taking a look at the class, the Vanguardian, and its other abilities. So obviously we did end up seeing this in the video that I ended up putting out, just kind of showing off the class in general, but those are going to be the Valentine's pinatas, and then we've got St. Patty's Day pinatas as well. So begs the question even more, or, you know, makes me kind of theorize that clearly the update that has both of these pinatas in the source code has the new class, meaning that when the March update ends up coming out and starts preparing for the Valentine pinatas and stuff like that, you know, pushes the idea even more so that we're going to end up seeing the new class arrive in March. It just would honestly make sense as far as the game's code is concerned, because what are they going to do? Add the class to the game's code, and then, like, it's like they end up waiting a couple months before they end up actually saying to the game, okay, now this can be released publicly, right? So as we're going to see right here, we're getting near the end of the clip that we ended up seeing, that I ended up putting up on the channel, because that's pretty much all that there was as far as the short Trove clip that I saw. But we get to see right here, the character is going to reuse your ultimate ability, which ends up pulling all the enemies in for a brief moment and switching the character back to a fist fighting character, right? And it's got quite a bit of pull to it. So you can see it made our character dash forward and do a nice little pull. And then we also get to see the right mouse button ability right there, which is going to be laser beams kind of shooting out of the eyes, which very interestingly enough, doesn't seem like it, you know, is a projectile that ends up hitting a certain enemy and just stopping. It seems like it's got a set range to it and just phases through all of the enemies. So kind of like what I was worried about was whether it was going to end up operating the same as the mouse 2 when you're in ranged mode, because then it would be like you're essentially having two of the exact same ability just repeated for both melee and range. But it seems like on the melee version, it's just a close range, like shotgun blast, near as I can tell anyways. Maybe it is actually shooting a projectile, but the fact that it's actually attacking all of these pinatas shows that it does have a little bit more range, or at least a little bit more area of effect to it. But anyways, that's already it, Reapers. Thanks so much for watching. Just wanted to show you that last clip because I didn't end up doing it in the class video, and I'm sorry about that. Lots of people are also speculating about the pull that this character has, saying how it's very similar to the Barbarian ability, not realizing that it was the ultimate ability that ended up doing the pull. It's not the number 1 when he's in melee mode. We don't know what that ability is. And also, just to reiterate the same point, I'm pretty confident this update is coming out in March, Reapers, because of the fact that this character is completely fleshed out. Usually one of the last things that the developers end up doing when they're developing a character is they'll end up putting the pictures to all of the abilities on the hotbar, and we've already seen that that is like fully fleshed out. Like we've got pictures for everything, we've got the character animating and everything. It's not broken by any means, and seems like it's actually in the core game and fully completed. So again, why would they wait further than the March update before this ends up getting added to the game? But this is just technically speculating, so maybe we won't see it in March, but I'm pretty confident, like 95% sure we're gonna see this character in March. It just makes sense. And this week's dev live stream, they did say is going to be absolutely epic, so potentially we could see some news about when this character is coming onto the PTS, and potentially get an announcement that is coming out in the March update. But until then, we'll hold our breaths and just cross our fingers. Thanks for watching, though, folks. Very much appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content, as well as that is also going to end up building up loyalty points to my merch store. Links are in the description for that. And for the fans that want to go the extra mile, you can donate to me for absolutely free with Gawkbox. Links are in the description explaining that as well. Sign on and stay epic, everybody.